Hey guys, this is Andrew, and welcome back to yet another video. Now, this is gonna be a bit of a different video I'm gonna make today, and sorry for being a bit late getting this out here. Because it's not involving club football, it's involving national teams, because as you guys know, the Nations League first match day and second match days have been complete. And this is basically just my review and my personal thoughts on the results of these nations and how I think they might be, where I think they could potentially go heading into the 2026 World Cup, and some of the really interesting things I found out here. I mean, the Nations League, even though it is considered a competitive tournament, I personally just think they're glorified friendlies. But anyways, this is usually a competition where the smaller teams can see themselves having an opportunity to do something against these stronger or bigger nations. And one of the results I have here already proven that this was exactly the case. So let's start and get into it. First game was Azerbaijan versus Sweden. Azerbaijan was the home team, Sweden the away one, and Sweden ended up winning that game 3-1. Their striker from Sporting, Gyökeres, was on fire this game. He was electric, and Sweden do look pretty decent in the Nations League. But I'm not gonna get too fooled yet heading into the 2026 World Cup about their current form, because if I remember correctly, before World Cup or Euro qualifier, they were on a pretty good run of form in friendlies too, and they ended up massively disappointing. So I need to see more from them than just beating Azerbaijan for me to think they might be able to qualify for the 2026 World Cup. And that's even despite the added nations. Next up was Belarus versus Bulgaria. Belarus being the home team, Bulgaria being the away team. It ended up being a boring 0-0 draw at the end of the match. To be honest, I'm not too surprised about this result. I consider both national teams to be on pretty similar level right now, so that result makes a lot of sense. Now, the next game. This is something I have to talk about a little bit more, because we all know, we all love San Marino. No matter how many games they lose, time after time after time again, they're the national team that everyone in the world roots for if they're not playing against their own national team. This is one of the most likable underdogs, I think, in the world when it comes to international football. These guys, until this point, have not won a competitive football game in their entire history. Their only win in football that came in their entire history was in the 2009 friendly against Liechtenstein, which they ended up winning 1-0. Guess which was the team they were playing this time? Liechtenstein. The exact same team that in 2009 San Marino got their first win again. And history ended up repeating itself, because San Marino got another 1-0 win against Liechtenstein, but this time it's in the Nations League. So this is San Marino's official first ever competitive win under UEFA. So massive congratulations to San Marino. And to be honest, when I look at who's the third opponent in their group, I think there's actually a pretty decent chance San Marino could win this group and end up going to the next league phase. So yeah, really, really great from them. Again, congratulations to them a lot. The next game was Northern Ireland versus Luxembourg. Northern Ireland were the home side, of course, and they ended up winning the game 2-0. Not gonna lie, this was a little bit of a disappointing performance from Luxembourg, if I'm being honest, because Luxembourg actually did quite well in the European qualifiers, despite conceding quite a few goals. So this is a little bit disappointing, in my opinion, from a nation that usually scores a lot but also concedes a lot. So yeah. Next game was Estonia versus Slovakia. Estonia being the home side. And Slovakia ended up winning that game 1-0 away from home. Not too surprising about this result, if I'm being honest. I think Slovakia are the better team, but it was more difficult for them because they were playing away from home. But they still got the result at the end. Next game, this was a result that surprised me a little bit. It was Serbia versus Spain. Serbia being the home side. It ended up being a 0-0 draw, and even though Serbia barely created any chances against the Spanish, I thought their defense was actually very, very solid. They did not allow Yamal to have any real danger or attacking threat, or neither did any of the Spanish opposition. The Spanish did create some chances, but they weren't really clear-cut chances. And that ended up being a draw. So fair play to Serbia for pulling that off. Next up is Scotland versus Poland. Scotland being the home side. Poland ended up winning that game in a thrilling 3-2 scoreline. And I do feel a bit bad for Scotland because they were actually winning this game for the majority of the time, but they just couldn't hold on to it, and Poland ended up winning the game 3-2, which, again, is not too surprising, this result. Maybe the scoreline is, with how many goals were scored this game, but the result at the end was not a shock, with Poland ending up to get the win. Denmark versus Switzerland. This was a bit surprising. Denmark being the home side, they ended up comfortably beating Switzerland 2-0, which I found very surprising because apart from a decent round of 16 performance against Germany in the Euros, I thought Denmark were pretty underwhelming for most of the Euro campaign and tournament, and they ended up beating one of the teams that, in my opinion, had one of their best runs in a while at the Euros, being Switzerland. And it wasn't even just like, a little bit unlucky 2-0 win. No, Denmark thoroughly deserved to win that game. They were by far the better team, and Switzerland really did not offer a lot against them, which I found very surprising considering their respective Euro campaigns. Next game I have on here is Portugal versus Croatia. Portugal being the home side, and they ended up getting a 2-1 win over Croatia. Not a big surprise, this result, to be honest, because Portugal are a very good team now, and Croatia have been on a little bit of a decline. So this result was not really too surprising to me. Croatia's only goal was also an own goal, so They weren't really ever in that game, to be honest. Sorry. And yeah. Next game we have over here is Kazakhstan versus Norway, which ended up being a 0-0 draw. Again, not a really too surprising not a really too surprising result in my opinion. I consider both of these national teams to be on pretty similar, even level, so this wasn't really much of a surprise. The next game, however, Lithuania versus Cyprus. Lithuania being the home team. Cyprus ended up winning that game 1-0, which I thought was quite surprising considering Lithuania I thought were slightly better and were also the home side. So this was a very disappointing performance from Lithuania. And yeah. Next game, we got Belgium versus Israel. Belgium being the home side, and Belgium ended up winning that game 3-1. Not a big surprise, to be honest, because Belgium is definitely by far and away a stronger national team than Israel. So this result wasn't really much of a surprise, to be honest. Wales versus Turkey ended up in a 0-0 draw. Not too surprising, because I think Wales have been on a slight upward trajectory, even after now losing Gareth Bale, that they no longer have him. And Turkey, I thought, were also a very solid team as well, made a very good run in the Euros. So this result was not too surprising. Maybe I expected a bit more of like a narrow Turkey win, but it's not a bad result either by any means. Then we got Iceland versus Montenegro, which Iceland being the home side, they ended up getting a 2-0 win over Montenegro. Not too surprising, this result, to be honest. Slovenia versus Austria. It ended up being a 1-1 draw. Slovenia being the home side as well. I thought this was a little bit disappointing from Austria, considering what I saw from them at the Euros tournament. It could be that they're not taking this competition as seriously as they would for other national team competitions, but it still wasn't really a great performance either by any means. Next game we have is Kosovo versus Romania. Kosovo, of course, being the home team. And Romania ended up winning that game 3-0. I'm like, bro, what is up with Romania winning 3-0 in opening games? This is really starting to become a habit for Romania. But yeah, generally talking about it, I think 3-0 is flattering Romania a little bit, this particular scoreline, because I don't think Kosovo played that bad against Romania. I just think they made a few way too many individualistic errors and mistakes towards the end of the game that ended up being the reason why Romania were able to get so many goals there. But yeah, the next game we have got two powerhouses who faced each other. France versus Italy. France being the home side. And Italy surprisingly ended up winning that game 3-1, which that was a big surprise to me, because even with France not necessarily having the best Euro campaign, Italy had an arguably even worse Euro campaign than France did. And France started off very well, scoring, I believe, 20 seconds into the game against Italy, and you just thought at that point that France were eventually gonna run away with this game. But that never happened. After those initial first 10-15 minutes, Italy really started to get into the game, started to apply pressure to the French, and they ended up just running away with the game and ended up winning the game 3-1, which I find a bit surprising, as I mentioned. But in recent years, France has been struggling a lot in the Nations League, so maybe in general this result shouldn't have been too surprising on the surface. Next game we got Faroe Islands versus North Macedonia. Faroe Islands, of course, being the home team, and it ended up being a 1-1 draw. Not a big surprise there, to be honest. I don't have much to talk about from those two national teams. Ireland versus England was next, and Ireland were the home team, and England ended up winning the game 2-0, with their two former Ireland players ended up being the ones who scored the goals for them, being Jack Grealish and Declan Rice. And to be honest, I think England also could have won this game by more. They could have scored 3, they could have scored 4. They were creating quite a few chances against the Irish, just couldn't put many of them away. But hey, they got the 3 points at the end of the day, and that's all that matters in the Nations League. Next up, we got Armenia versus Latvia. And Armenia were the home team, and they ended up destroying Latvia 4-1, which I found quite a bit surprising, because I find both of these national teams at a very similar level, and Latvia usually don't lose to teams by big score lines. They usually keep it quite narrow when they lose games against big national teams. But this wasn't the case. Against a team that I argue is similar on their level, they ended up destroying them 4-1, which was quite surprising, to be honest. Next game, we got Georgia versus Czech Republic. Georgia, of course, being the home team. This ended up being another demolition job, with Georgia beating Czech Republic 4-1, which is officially their biggest competitive win, I believe, in UEFA as well. Georgia had a very memorable run in the Euros, and it seems like they're carrying on to build that momentum going forward. And regarding Georgia, I will not be surprised if this is a national team we see again in the 2026 World Cup, especially if they keep up this form, because right now they are smoking hot in form. And it wasn't even just like Georgia destroying Czech Republic on the counter-attack. No, Georgia in general, in ball possession and shots, were actually the better team over Czech Republic, which I find that very concerning for a national team of the stature of Czech Republic, that they're getting outplayed on the ball by a team like Georgia. That's never a good sign, in my opinion. And I think they really need to sort things out if they want to qualify for the 2026 World Cup. Next up, we got Moldova versus Malta. Moldova being the home side, they ended up winning 2-0. Not a big surprise, to be honest. Greece versus Finland was next. Greece, of course, was the home side. Greece ended up winning that game 3-0. Again, not really too much of a surprise. I do think Greece are a much better national team than Finland, especially right now. Next up, we got Ukraine versus Albania. and Ukraine being the home side. And Albania ended up winning the game away from home 2-1, which I found quite surprising because I didn't think Ukraine had an absolutely horrible Euro campaign. They just got really unlucky with how things turned out in the draw for them in the group stage. And Albania, same thing. I also thought they didn't have a bad run at all in the Euros. But I thought Ukraine, with that extra bit of quality that they have, would have been enough to get over the line against Albania, especially at home. But no, that wasn't the case. Albania ended up being the one showing up and showing that they can actually beat some teams that are slightly above their level, which is quite interesting and good to see. Maybe we will also see Albania in the 2026 World Cup. We'll see. Next game, the penultimate game in match day 1 of the Nations League. We got Netherlands versus Bosnia and Herzegovina. Netherlands, of course, being the home team. And Netherlands ended up winning that game 5-2, which is not too surprising in my opinion, because Bosnia are on horrible form right now. And the Netherlands look like they've been re-energized after getting knocked out in the semi-final of their Euro campaign. The defense was a bit of a question mark this game, conceding 2 goals to Bosnia, of course. But it was still a very good performance from them overall. And the last match game of match day 1 in the Nations League was, of course, my country, Germany, ending up playing against Hungary, with Germany being the home side. A new German national team with no Toni Kroos anymore, no Thomas Müller, no Manuel Neuer. There's quite a few different players now playing for this national team. And I thought that against Hungary, we might struggle a little bit, being a little bit in transition to try to find that balance again. And for the first 10 to 15 minutes, it looked like that was the case, because it was a pretty 50-50 game up until that point. But starting the 20th minute, Germany just switched and flipped into another gear, and they absolutely took control and started dominating the game, and we ended up winning 5-0 against Hungary. Could have also been genuinely 6 or 7 if Kai Havertz knew how to finish some of those chances. But overall, this was a very impressive mark from Germany, and they are proving once again that these guys are going to be genuine contenders for the 2026 World Cup. That's honestly not too far away from happening now, which is quite interesting. I'm very excited to see what the 2026 World Cup in America has in store, because this is looking very promising right now for not only a lot of national teams, but also of course the German national team as well. Next up, we're going to match day 2. And the first match of match day 2 was Luxembourg versus Belarus. Luxembourg being the home team, and they continued their disappointing run, and they ended up losing that game 1-0, which, as I already mentioned, to these 2 losses being in Luxembourg's window, considering this is national teams that they probably on paper should at least be getting a draw at, especially at home, I think is pretty disappointing for Luxembourg. And now for Bulgaria versus Northern Ireland was the next game. Bulgaria being the home team, and Bulgaria ended up winning that game 1-0. which not a big surprise to be honest, because these two teams I do find at similar levels. Denmark continued their impressive Nations League campaign by facing Serbia, then Denmark being the home side, and they ended up winning that game 2-0. Two 2-0 wins in a row and 2 clean sheets. Very solid stuff for Denmark against opposition as well that are a little bit tricky to beat. So that's quite impressive from Denmark. I think they will qualify for the 2026 World Cup. Slovakia versus Azerbaijan. Slovakia, of course, being the home team. And Slovakia ended up winning that game 2-0. Not a big surprise, again, as I'll say, because Slovakia is a better team than Azerbaijan. And winning 2-0 does make a lot of sense for them. Next game, we had Gibraltar versus Liechtenstein. Gibraltar being the home team. And they ended up being a 2-2 draw. But I'm telling you, that scoreline does not represent how chaotic this match actually was. First up, towards the 90th minute, it looked like Gibraltar scored the winner against Liechtenstein to get them the 3 points, but then VAR called their goal off for offside. Then, just a few minutes later into stoppage time, Liechtenstein ended up scoring a legitimate goal to seemingly win the game 2-1 against Gibraltar in the dying minutes. But after that, and Gibraltar on top of that, went down to 10 men. Or, hold on. Oh no, I mixed that up. It was Liechtenstein that seemed like they scored the winner, but it was ruled out for offside. Then Gibraltar seemingly won the game by scoring late into the match, very late into stoppage time, making it 2-1. And it seemed like that was going to be the winner. But then Gibraltar ended up getting a stupid red card, and then in the very last minute of the game, they conceded a penalty to Liechtenstein, and Liechtenstein ended up equalizing to make it 2-2. This game was absolutely mental, and I love the chaos that it brought. So next game we have on this list is Portugal against Scotland. Portugal, of course, being the home team. And Portugal ended up winning that game late on with a Ronaldo winner to win the game 2-1. Now Scotland, to be honest, 2-1 isn't really representing how this game went, because Scotland pretty much just scored early and then parked the bus for the rest of the entire game. So Portugal really couldn't penetrate them too hard. But Portugal still ended up winning the game 2-1 and getting the 3 points. Also for Scotland, losing 2 games in a row. Actually 3 if you're including the last minute winner from Hungary. In Scotland's last 3 competitive games, they have conceded a late loss in every single one of them, which is quite unfortunate and sad for Scotland. Next game we have up here was Switzerland versus Spain, which Switzerland being the home team, and despite Spain going down to 10 men in the middle of the first half, Spain still ended up dominating and won that game 4-1, which was very, very impressive stuff from Spain. And I'm like, you gotta give your hats off to them, because they are one of the favorites, in my opinion, heading into the 2026 World Cup. And They pretty much just confirmed it with that performance. Switzerland, on the other hand, I'm beginning to get a bit concerned, because this is now two really disappointing losses back to back after they had a good Euro campaign. They need to make sure they find that form that they had before going into that Euro campaign, because if they continue performing on at this rate, doesn't look like they'll even qualify for the 2026 World Cup. So we'll see. The next game, we had Sweden versus Estonia. Sweden being the home team, and they ended up winning the game 3-0. And to be honest, this one wasn't even a competition. Sweden easily in this game could have scored 4, 5, 6 goals. They just weren't as clinical as they should have been. But hey, they still got a dominating win, 3-0. They got the 3 points, so they'll be happy with that. Next game we have up was Croatia versus Poland, with Croatia being the home side, and Croatia ended up winning that game 1-0 thanks to a Luka Modric winner. Not a too surprising result, if I'm being honest. Croatia is a better national team than Poland, and I actually thought Croatia dominated for the most part of the game. So yeah, they definitely deserved the win, and they got it. So fair play to them. Next up, we got Cyprus versus Kosovo. Cyprus, of course, being the home team. Kosovo had a big response after that 3-0 opening loss to Romania, because they ended up destroying Cyprus 4-0 away from home, which is a brilliant reply back result from Kosovo, and a very disappointing performance, if I'm being honest, from Cyprus as well. And next up we got Turkey versus Iceland, with Turkey of course being the home side, and Turkey ended up winning that game 3-1. Not a big surprise, this result, to be honest. Turkey were very much the favorites heading into this game, and Iceland weren't really expected to do much, and they still did well, so fair play to them. France, next game up was France versus Belgium. France being the home team, and France ended up winning that game 2-0. A much better showing and performance they showed this game compared to the Italy game, but also I thought Belgium were really woeful this game and did not create a lot too many chances, and France definitely deserved the win over them. Next up we got Slovenia versus Kazakhstan. Slovenia ended up being the home team, and they ended up winning that game 3-0 thanks to a Benjamin Šeško hat-trick, which if there's any RB Leipzig fans out there, you'll be very happy about that. Slovenia absolutely decimated Kazakhstan at their home ground, and it was a deserved 3 points. Next game up, we had Romania versus Lithuania. Romania being the home team, of course, and Romania ended up winning the game 3-1, which for Romania, I don't think that's too much of a surprise result, because Romania are a much better team than Lithuania, so this result was not really too surprising to me. Next game we have on this list was Israel versus Italy. And Israel were the home team, well, home-ish team. They didn't exactly play at home because of the situation that's going on with Palestine. But Italy ended up winning that game 2-1, which maybe I expected a slightly bigger scoreline from Italy this game, but a win is a win, and it's 3 points. So I think Italy will absolutely take that heading into the next Nations League window. Next game we have up is Norway versus Austria. Norway, of course, being the home team. And Norway ended up picking up a surprise 2-1 win over Austria at home. This was a little bit surprising, and again, it continued Austria's underwhelming performances ever since their decent European campaign. They can play good football, but for some reason, these guys can't score a lot of goals. So that's a little bit concerning for them. Next game we have up is Montenegro versus Wales. Montenegro, of course, being the home team. And Wales ended up winning 2-1 away from home. Not a big surprise there, as I want to mention. Next game we have up is Latvia versus Faroe Islands. Latvia, of course, being the home team. And Latvia ended up winning that game 1-0, which is not really too much a surprise. Both of these national teams are on very similar level. And I think Latvia, being the home team, just about edged it for them. And that's why they won that game. The next game that we had was Ireland versus Greece, with Ireland being the home team, and Greece ended up winning that game 2-0. Not really a surprise, because Ireland right now at the moment, let's face it, are pretty shit, and this result was expected for me. Next game up, we had Albania versus Georgia, with Albania being the home team, and Georgia ended up picking up a 1-0 away win against Albania, which Georgia again proving that they were not a fluke. They were again genuinely the better ball-playing team over Albania. So Georgia have really improved that part and aspect of their game, and they're doing a good job of doing it. So in my opinion, if they can keep up like this, they might have a decent World Cup as well. You may never know. This nation's really starting to be on a rise. The next game we had up was England versus Finland, which England were playing at home, and England ended up winning 2-0 thanks to my boy Harry Kane scoring a brace, which on his 100th cap for England as well, which is absolutely great, and he had a great match that game, and I'm gonna talk about later as well how he did in our Bayern Munich game against Holstein Kiel, which is the next video that I'm gonna be posting not long after this. So yeah, England ended up winning 2-0, not a big surprise, and to be honest, they probably could have even scored more than that and won 3 or 4-0. They definitely look like a more balanced attacking team than they did under Gareth Southgate. So let's see how they'll go for the 2026 World Cup and the Nations League tournament as it continues on. Next up, we had Czech Republic taking on Ukraine, with Czech Republic being at home. This ended up being a very back and forth game between the two countries, but Czech Republic just about edged it out at home, winning 3-2 over Ukraine, which the scoreline is surprising, but who won wasn't, because this is the kind of matches that I expect Czech Republic to win and not get absolutely battered or destroyed by Georgia. So this was definitely more like them from that. Next game we had on this list was Andorra versus Malta, with Andorra being the home team. And Malta ended up getting a 1-0 away win against Andorra. Not really too surprising. I find both of these national teams, again, as I said, on pretty similar level and playing field. So this result was not too surprising. Next game was again my country, Germany, playing again. It was this time Netherlands versus Germany, with Netherlands being the home team. It ended up being a 2-2 draw for that game, and I thought that was a very back and forth game. Both Netherlands and Germany had and created a lot of chances against each other. I thought Germany were the slightly better team overall, but Netherlands definitely put up a good fight, and a draw was probably a fair result for these two national teams. Although I'll also have to say, the ref during that game was absolutely horrible, and it looked like Julian Nagelsmann actually wanted to have a go at that ref, and I absolutely don't blame him. I mean, how can you stop an attack that is going through the final play in the final minute in the whistle and blow it? That I do not get. Even the Dutch players were a little bit confused when that happened. And then in the next game, the penultimate game that we're going to be talking about in my Nations League review video, is Hungary versus Bosnia. And Hungary continued their disappointing form, only managing, while being the home team, to manage a 0-0 draw against Bosnia, which was very underwhelming from them, and they really could not create too many clear-cut chances against Bosnia. Seriously, Hungary's fall off from 2022 needs to be studied, because now they can't even beat teams that they should be beating on paper. And the last game that I'm going to be talking about in this particular video for the Nations League is North Macedonia versus Armenia, with North Macedonia being the home side, and North Macedonia ended up winning that game 2-0, which is not a massive surprise to me, because I found these two national teams, again, as I mentioned with others, on a similar level, and North Macedonia were the home team for that game, so I definitely expected more of a performance from them. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That is my Nations League review video. So I hope you guys enjoyed about me talking a bit of some of the games and giving a bit of insight into what I thought about each ones that happened, with club football now being officially back, and I believe Bayern Munich are also going to be playing in the Champions League tonight against Dinamo Zagreb. I don't know when that reaction video is going to come out, but it probably will come out sometime in the next few days. But yeah, that's all I got to say for this video. I hope you enjoyed my Nations League review. And if you're new to my channel, go hit that subscribe button and go hit that like button on this video. And I hope you all guys enjoyed this. Take care. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, everyone.